Just how many times have we gone down State Highway 1 and been crying on the way home because we lost? How many times? I think I've got a bromance going on with Leo McDonald. He's come here, he's transformed the Blues. They're getting off the line, they're tackling. How good have we seen? Look at this. Oh, forget those. Don't even worry about that shit. Take a photo of that, people. We're on top. So good. And look, I just love a donut.
Breakdown is brought to you by Nurofen Zavance. Available every day at Chemist Warehouse.
Kia ora, hello and welcome to The Breakdown. I am Laura McGoldrick. I'm filling in for the fabulous Kirsty, who is away having a well-earned break. Nice to have a bit of Crusaders representation on the panel, if I'm honest. Joined by the usual panel here tonight, Mills Muliaina, Sir John Kerwin, who is very passionate about a donut, which I respect, and Jeff Wilson. Great to be here with you, lads. Plenty to unpack from the weekend. Mills, I think probably the most important thing we need to ask today is you're definitely a Blues man, given what happened over the weekend?
Absolutely. Yeah! Good on you, mate. Good on you. Blues this week.
I brought you all a donut too, so don't worry. I brought you all one.
No more donuts in Dunedin.
No
more donuts in Dunedin. We're off the mark, lads. You watch now. You just watch us soar.
On the charge.
In fact, we lost a couple of key guys to knee injuries. That's not ideal. Doesn't matter. The next team will step up. Look, it was nice to be in Dunedin when it happened. Moana Pacifica put up a fight. But like you say, all the action was in Wellington and Hamilton yesterday, and there was some great rugby played. Some
fantastic rugby played. A lot of action, a lot to get into to debrief the weekend now. So let's have a look. Super Rugby with Nurofen available, of course, at Chemist Warehouse. We do love Chemist Warehouse. I certainly do. I've got to stay out of that place. We're going to get to the Crusaders shortly. There is plenty to unpack there. But let us start with the Blues, who kept the Chiefs scoreless 25-0. I think it surprised us all. Jeff, for the neutral observer here, how did you feel the game went? Because Beauden Barrett, even post-match, said it was just an odd game.
Well, it's an odd game when you're down to 13 men and down to 14 men on multiple occasions, and all of a sudden you have to defend for long periods of time. And there were tries turned over, mistakes from the Chiefs. The Chiefs probably blew about 10 opportunities in the game. And so for them to not score a try, to not score a point, I think they'll be bitterly disappointed. But this is probably all about the Blues. I mean, you talk about a team that's establishing a culture, doing it without their signing in the off-season, but they've got a number of guys out with injuries. Finlay Christie was ruled out late. JK, this was impressive for all the reasons you talked about as you prepared to eat your donut, but I think for the Blues, this could be a critical moment given what they've got coming up on Friday night, which will possibly set them up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Leon McDonald said today that it was his best performance as a coach. And keeping the Chiefs out was amazing. Now, something you need to be careful of, they did blow a few opportunities that would have given them some momentum, especially just before half-time. They could have gone in a lot closer. But the thing that impressed me with the Blues, how quick they're actually attacking when they get a roll on. Haven't seen that probably since round one. And secondly, they've got so much confidence and aggression in their defensive line, especially off the goal line. I mean, years gone by, you'd see them hesitate because they didn't have that confidence.
Yeah, they were really fluent about their game in terms of, how they started. And if you strip it right back, he's rotated a fair bit. He's used a lot of young guys leading into this. So guys that have actually returned, back into the fold in a big match, they were really clinical. Beauden Barrett was massive in terms of how he sort of played, but the intensity too, you sort of felt it from the start, and they didn't let off, regardless of the fact they were down to 13 men. That's what I really loved about it. And on the flip side, the Chiefs, they looked a bit lost. I mean, they lost a bit of leadership, obviously with Anton and Brown going off, but also, around what they were going to do when they had that sort of advantage, two-man advantage. What were they going to do to try and score those points? It almost became frantic when it needed to be sort of really calm.
Speaking of calm, JK, I was so impressed at the way Beauden Barrett, he was so emphatic on the field. I didn't realise, I think, just how much of an influence he was going to have in that match, but it was pretty clear from the get-go.
Yeah, they did that inside ball quite a lot too, so they'd seen something in the video, but he was just really, really calm. And I think, we see his brilliance, the offload, we see his kicking game, Goldie, but actually when they were down to 13 men, he's just out there kicking it, you know, taking over the game, giving confidence.
This is on the back of 20 minutes of rugby.
Yeah.
On the back of 20 minutes of rugby, he comes out and put up this performance. And we always talk about leadership. You need experience. They've got some of that in their forward pack. You've got to like the way that they're tracking. They're continuing to get standout performances across the park. But I think Bowden is the X factor. He's the guy that's going to come in and drive them forward towards a championship if they're going to get there. And it allows them to play Stephen Perofeta at fullback Mills. I think that's critical for them. I think that's his best position. It allows them to have two guys who can control the game. The other side of it too is he's not having to goal kick Bowden.
Yeah, amen.
There's no pressure on him in regards to that. Perofeta is doing that job.
Yeah, and he is. He's just taking that sort of that stress off him a little bit. But one area I actually thought they were really good at right from the get-go, and they targeted was the breakdown. They were so aggressive that it almost caught the Chiefs off guard. You know, they were counter-rucking. Guys were getting up off their feet when there was someone there. So they obviously analysed that aspect of the Chiefs' game, that someone would be, isolated, and really attacked that. And it just almost, as I said, it caught the Chiefs off guard and it made them frantic. It's sort of like, are we going to get clean ball? Are we not? Who's going to come in there? We've got to protect it. When they protected the ball, they drew a lot of numbers, and the Blues were really smart about fanning out. So game tactics was on point. So I guess that's what Liam McDonald is saying. You know, it's probably the best game that he's had from a coaching point of view. Yeah,
execute the game plan. I think that whole kicking thing's really interesting because, does that open up the All Black spot where you say, well, if Geordie's at fullback, he's our kicker, and Bodie...
Is Geordie at fullback?
Yeah, of course he is. I've told you that.
Okay.
You don't think he is?
Well, he could be at second five.
Oh, there we go. No, but seriously,
There's another conversation.
Not having the pressure to kick for some players might suit them a wee bit more. And if you've got a competent kicker, and hasn't Perofeta come on, Mills, into that role where he's kicking and playing well. So, that's the best performance. But we've got, I think the Blues, once again, comes down to Crusaders, doesn't it? Crusaders representation at the end of the table over there. If that's still the yardstick.
Yeah, I think
the Chiefs missed a few opportunities. Yep. You've got to go down.
The Chiefs did exactly what they did against the Crusaders. They panicked. They had opportunities, they had plenty of possession, they had plenty of ball, but they weren't able to go to that extra phase, that one step longer, take one more reset, then go again. They kept looking for it too quickly. And as you talked about, the Blues focused really heavily on stopping the carrying. And Peter Gus-Sowakula had been doing that so well for the Chiefs. They focused on it, they targeted it, and it's not like he didn't have an impact on the game, but he didn't get them the same momentum and finish like they'd been doing earlier on in the season. Look, clearly the best two teams defensively in this competition right now for me are the Blues and Crusaders. They're doing it and doing it well. Look, the Blues, bar 10 minutes against the Hurricanes, could quite easily be undefeated so far this season. If you look at the way that they've gone, that is where this team is at. That's the depth that they've built. I'm impressed incredibly with the talent they've got on show, but also it's performing on a consistent basis.
What do you do now if you're the Chiefs team, the coach, you're sitting there, you're thinking, there's a bit to unpack from this weekend. Where do you start?
Well, they've got to regroup, obviously. They lost 2 home games on the trot. They'll be really disappointed, and you've seen the reaction of Sam Cane after the game is, obviously dejected. Great fans as well, but they've got a chance now to really bounce back. There's a big couple of weeks, especially when the crossovers happen. They've got a match against a Moana Pacifica team that are going to be physical once again. So I think it's a really good chance for them to really, strip things back a little bit, get to really simplistic, and hopefully get some of those, those guys back. You've spoken about Retallick. Tupou Vai wasn't sort of playing. They're really key guys in terms of, the dynamics of their team and how they want to play, and that calmness that they'll be wanting to bring.
As a head coach, when we saw the coach of the Chiefs say that, that down to 13 men, they just overcomplicated everything, the Chiefs. They just made it so much harder than they had to the whole time. How do you stop that? Is that just lack of experience? Is that just not knowing how to capitalise on those moments, JK?
Yeah, look, I think there was a couple of things happening the other night. They couldn't create any pressure to put the Blues back under the pump. I looked at the clock, 70 minutes had gone past, they hadn't had the ball. I think Bryn Gatland's been outstanding. He probably didn't have his best evening the other night, and those things need to happen. But you're better off having a wobble now, and guys looking at their form, and you go, well, okay, we've got the Trans-Tasman coming up, and there's still a chance. They're still in the top 8. So, if you're Clayton, you just don't panic. You go, here we go. Let's.
In short, they missed Josh Ioane as well. They missed his attacking ability, the fact whether it was starting or coming off the bench, the ability for him to change the game. That's where they've got a nice balance between him and Bryn Gatland. I think they missed him. He was really, really good against the Hurricanes, created a lot of play. They didn't need to be as direct with him because he was able to use his running game. I think they missed that. But you have to give all of the credit on that performance to a team that did it without all of the complement of players for a long part of that game.
Absolutely. Well, the big talking point, of course, from the weekend of rugby was the Crusaders and Canes game, that final moment, those final moments. But before we get to that, how about the committee meeting to decide whether to kick for goal or to touch? Have a listen to Nisbo here.
Now, what's the message here? Do we win it now? Are we going to go to Golden Point?
Surely the players can make up their own mind. They don't have to expect the coaches to tell them what to do. What's going on?
This went for a long period of time. I was at the game, and I think there was even another occasion in that play where Ardie Savea looked again to Corey Jane, just to be really clear what the option was. And look, here's the thing, right?
Stop.
Well, what stop?
Stop. OK, let's go round. What would you have done?
Here's the thing.
Kick a goal or kick to the corner?
Can I explain why I do it, though? I take the 3 point... No,
you don't have that
what's
time.
What's the point?
You don't have that time.
I have got the... No, I've got the time. You take the shot at goal and give yourself multiple chances to win the game, not just one.
What if your team's out on its feet?
What's that? Ask Sean Johnson. Ask Sean Johnson. It took him 4 guys in the weekend. Well done, Warriors, by the way.
You would have kicked for goal.
Kicked for the goal, get to Golden Point, and then all of a sudden you'll get more than one opportunity to win. By making that decision, it was on one play against one of the best defensive lineouts in the game, who got up and competed and made it incredibly difficult for them to succeed. I understand if there is no other option, but for me, this wasn't the right one in this game. You were playing better than that.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was watching it, and you've got to remember, I mean, it's not so much what you would have done if you're a player. I think it's what you would have done as a coach. I mean, you've got the benefit of sitting there and looking at the situation. You haven't got the hype downstairs, making a real calm decision. And it's usually the coaches that sort of sit there and go, OK, here's what do we do here? Without the emotion, I would have thought they would have gone for a shot and then say, let's reset and go again, given the dynamics of what's sort of going on. And also, against a team that has not, given away a drive in terms of a try. So I would have.
JK, I feel like I might be misinterpreting this, but I feel like you have something to say on the match.
No. What would you do?
Take a shot at goal.
Oh, 3-1. Well done.
What, you're happy
well
with
done, whoever made the decision.
Is this the reason you're not coaching anymore?
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. But I would have gone out in flames.
You don't need to explain it.
I did go out in flames.
You don't need to explain it.
I did go out in flames.
Pure and simple.
Look, they had tried to win it. They tried to win it.
And they could have
had confidence in themselves. Kick to the corner. Now...
They could have tried to win it multiple
times. Okay, so 3-1, I get that, 3-1. I would have kicked to the corner, thought it was a great decision. However, the next thing is, was it the right decision from the referee to get it wrong when the player gets attacked in the air?
Oh, we're going to look at it. I know you'll be feeling passionate about it, but...
We are going to look at it. I just want to ask one quick question before we do. Mills, as a captain, say you're a captain, what does that say to you and your senior players group? Your coach coming down 2 or 3 times just to reiterate how he wants it done. Is that not the players group? Isn't there a point as the coach that you sort of go, right, well, you boys are on the ground, you know what it's all about?
Well, I was really surprised that the coaches wanted to go for the sideline. And here's my point about, you get the opportunity as a coach to actually really say, OK, where's the game at without the emotion? Obviously, Ardie was sitting there with his players and wanting to go to goal. So, I don't know. To go to JK's point, perhaps they thought, OK, let's back ourselves. The coaches have given us the ability to go back ourselves, and they might have seen something. But when they sit down on Monday to talk that over, because they will, I'm sure there'll be some honest words from both sides in terms of what they thought.
Do we know what the coach said?
Oh,
do we actually know what they said?
We know what Ardie
said. He gave him the line-out call as well.
He went like that. Couldn't interpret it.
Let's take a look at some of the footage from those final moments in the match there, which, like we say, a lot of talking points. And Ardie Savea not too happy with it. Jeff?
Well, I want to hear what he's got to say.
Let's take a look to see what Ardie said post-match with Ian Smith.
I'm lost for words, I've seen some calls there that go the other way, but unfortunately it didn't happen tonight. Yeah, mate, I'm speechless at the moment. Pretty heartbroken, as a leader, I like to put pressure on and demand, from the officials and making sure they're doing everything they can to get these calls right. Because at the end of the day, it can come to either or, and we get an apology the next week, but it's too late. So without sounding disrespectful, just would love to have the officials, demand better.
Jeff, I know you spent an inordinate amount of time on this today. What are your thoughts? Are you any the wiser?
My head hurts. Thinking about this, watching it, talking to people. Look, this is a really difficult situation, and you can understand some of the frustrations from Ardie Savea. He's been in so many close contests in recent time. Brendan Pickerel came into this game late after James Dolman was ruled out through COVID-related issues, so they've had Brendan Pickerel this year for 4 games, and unfortunately they've lost those 4. But that has nothing to do with this. Bottom line, the last 2 weeks they've had opportunities to win and they haven't, and this one here was probably the most difficult for a referee, in my view, to adjudicate. And when you look at it, it comes down to, if you went to the law and you had looked at all the angles, you could possibly find a reason to do exactly what Brendan Pickerel did or give a penalty. And unfortunately, that's the situation that we're about. And if we look at it, and JK, you're a line expert, and you're saying he took him in the air, I think for me, Scott Barrett, he goes for the ball at the same time Ardie Savea does. They are both holding the ball. They are both in contact with it. It's what happens here where it gets complicated, is then all of a sudden he gets the ground mills. And this is the challenge. Scott Barrett then falls on the far side. This is how it plays out. And then it becomes an unplayable. I honestly don't think there was an easy way for this to have been done. And the hard thing is, I know there was some frustration even from some of the fans who don't really understand what's happened at the end of the game.
I disagree with the fact they both had the ball in their hands. I think Ardie's clearly got that. He's ended up on the ground first, and then Scott Barrett has now come over top of him. Yes, they're fighting for the ball, but Ardie's clearly won that. So what is the referee looking at then? Okay, so who's won the ball and gone down to the ground? Is it Ardie or is it Scott Barrett? Okay, so if it's not Scott Barrett, then what's he done? What's he actually done there to stop that there? Because as Ardie's hit the ground, he looks like he's dominated that ball. And so I guess that's where Ardie's coming from, in the fact that, what's he, refereeing? I suppose the disappointing part is we're sitting here talking about it and he's frustrated. I hope the referees come out and say something about it.
I imagine they will. They'll have the meeting tomorrow. And
what are they going to say?
That they should have gone upstairs?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, we go upstairs if someone trips over a blade of grass nowadays. So why didn't they just go upstairs? Because I go, and great courage from the Crusaders to have a go at the defensive line out there close to the line. Second thing is, I thought once the defensive player was in that situation, he then has to release.
He was playing the ball, though. He was playing for the ball.
OK, so he wasn't.
Did you see the line-out throw? It was actually down the Crusaders' side.
That's irrelevant, right?
No, it's not irrelevant because, look, it's like...
No, it's irrelevant.
The Hurricanes controlled that situation.
It's irrelevant if you let me finish. It's irrelevant.
You never let me finish.
I know, sorry. So what happens? Attacks in the air, but then they go to ground, right? Then Scott Barrett has to roll away because Ardie's won it and he's on his side of the ruck. So I saw Dalton Popoali'i yesterday get penalised and he was trying to get out of the ruck. So Scott Barrett's got to get out of the way. So at least the referee, I understand, making decisions. Look, the game's over. Ardie has asked you, All Black captain, Hurricanes captain, can we have a look? And you go, nah, made my decision. Just go upstairs and then we're not talking about this stuff.
Well, apparently you can't because he's blown the whistle for full time, so you can't go to the TMO once full time.
Oh, that's just an excuse, I reckon.
Well, it didn't come from me, JK.
I know, but it's just...
Laura doesn't make the rules.
It's just a stupid rule.
But you see, look, I do agree with the fact...
It's just a stupid rule.
Well, make a call because you get on the phone because...
Oh, no, he doesn't. Bryce doesn't reply to my emails.
But look at the result. Look at the result.
I know how you feel, Ardie.
Look at the end result. Look what's happened. You've got a team here who could have won the game based on a decision that they could have gone upstairs. This is what we're trying to stop in terms of going upstairs. Isn't that what you want? You don't want to get to a Rugby World Cup and have this a few days later and had it known that there should have been a penalty there.
And that was my last point, Goldie. My trouble is everyone who makes the decision to go at goal goes, we now can't trust the officials. In a tight situation.
I disagree with that entirely.
Oh, no, let's go to point because, wow, what's going to happen at the line? We don't know.
Yeah, but if the Hurricanes execute that properly and they get a clean line-out take and get their drive set up, they put themselves in that position, in a contestable position to try and win the game. That was the first risk that they took. This is a result of that. When it gets to it, we're talking about a line-out drive more. The fact anything can happen in this situation, and anything did. And anything did.
Look, I think that was a lot. I think that was a lot for us all to digest there, and I'm not sure we got a really clear answer, but the answer I do have for you is the Crusaders won that one, so that's pretty good. Now, we have decided to give Jeff the job of putting together his power rankings, but before we get into that, let's take a look at the Super Rugby table as it sits right now.
I do really wonder whether I'll get to finish this, the way JK's going today. But anyway, this is what we're looking at right now. OK, we're almost at the halfway stage of Super Rugby Pacific. We're almost there. The Brumbies are at the halfway stage. They get the weekend off, as do the Fijian Drua. They are now just playing the teams based in New Zealand. That's how it works. There's your Blues. There's your Blues, the Crusaders, the Reds, the Waratahs and the Chiefs now. They slip down all the way to 6th. If we look at the next page, this is where it's going to get interesting as well. This is the Force. There are the Hurricanes sitting right now at 2 and 4. The Rebels, the Hollanders, yes, they've jumped up 2 spots.
Here they
right
come.
There. The Drua and the Moana Pacifica. Moana, of course, play tomorrow, and then we've got another game this weekend. So by the end of this weekend, everyone has played 8 games. That means everyone's got 6 to go. We're going to head across the Tasman then, and then all of a sudden, we'll find out who's going to make these spots. And if you are 1 through 4, guess what this year? You are at home for a quarter-final. So as it stands right now, I think this might change. The Brumbies will be playing the Hurricanes at home. The Blues will be at home playing the Force. The Crusaders will be at home playing the Chiefs. Imagine that. And then the Reds, they'll be playing the Waratahs at 4 and 5. But a lot can happen now because what we know, we saw it last year, when the Trans-Tasman side of this competition came about, New Zealand teams went on a run. So, my power rankings. The top teams at number 5. At number 5, I have the Brumbies. Why do I have the Brumbies? Because they've done it. They're on top of the table. They're the 5th team at the moment I see being competitive. What we know is that they're accurate, they're disciplined, they've got plenty of experience, they're consistent on their performances every season. They continue to play and play well. They can rely on their set piece. They're a side that will learn from their experiences last year against the New Zealand teams. So you've got to say they're going well. Let's have a look at my 4th ranked team. Brad Thorne's doing a fantastic job in Australia with a red side. They were dominant against the Brumbies at home. Both of these teams have shared 1 apiece this season, but with James O'Connor leading the ship, they're a team, they've got plenty of talent, the likes of Dangunu, the likes of Pataya. They've got plenty to like across their loose forward trio as well. So they're fronting up and fronting up well. Now, this has changed the top 3 since Friday. The Chiefs are at 3. And why do I still see them there? I think they're playing the quality and type of rugby that's going to stress the Australian teams, and they can get on a run with some momentum. So then you think about the way they've performed to date in this competition. They've been exciting to watch. They've had some standout players. They're missing a couple of key guys at the moment. Brodie Retallick, no Tupo Vai. Big loss in Anton Leonard-Brown. That might hurt them later on in the season. But they've always been a side that have had players step up. Now we're waiting. JK's waiting with bated breath. He's waiting with bated breath. I've got the Crusaders at number 2. Oh, don't like that over here. Jake, that's why he's smiling, and Laura doesn't like it. Remembering this is our defending Super Rugby champions. When we had a full competition, this is the team that was unbeatable. I don't think they're as dominant with ball in hand this year as they have been. They're not doing it as easy. We've seen in the last 2 weeks they've been pushed right to the brink and edge, remembering they're missing the likes of Sam Whitelock. This guy's been in fantastic form. I see them at the moment. They're not playing their best rugby, but doing enough to win. They will get better. I'm expecting them to open up. This is hard. This was difficult, but I'm going to do it. Clearly, it's the Blues. For you to go down to FMG Stadium, to take on the Chiefs in such good form, we'll see whether he's doing that in about 2 months' time. But to see Beauden Barrett doing this, to see them defending the way that they're defending, the pressure's on them now to deliver on a title. That's what the pressure is on. They delivered half a title last year. They've got their opportunity, JK, to deliver the full one. Their squad is strong. They've got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back. Akira Ioane will be back. They've got depth. Their young guys are stepping up. They've got everything they need to be a champion. To be a champion. Righto. Bring it.
You lost me a bit at the end there, I'll be honest.
Oh, you stopped listening. I know, you stopped listening.
Off.
Yeah.
I got to 2 and then I thought,
that was done as done. I look at those teams.
I'm offended.
Why are you offended?
Half a title.
So
half
you
a
haven't
title
got past
last year.
You haven't got
That's
past
offensive.
last year. You haven't got
That's
past
offensive.
last year.
Actually, it's the first time tonight you've been talking some sense. I actually agree with the lineup, and I think that if we could get a final of the Blues Crusaders, it'd be outstanding. I don't know if that can happen, but
The poor old, the Brumbies are on top of the table at the moment. How can you have them fifth?
Well, they just got beaten by the Reds comprehensively up in Brisbane, and I look at the way that the Australian teams performed last year in the Trans-Tasman competition. It wasn't impressive. The Reds were the standout team when it came to playing the New Zealand sides, and I think that they're best prepared because they're going to need to get wins. They're going to need to get... I think you'll need to get about 6 and bonus points to make the playoffs. And now, for those Australian sides and for the Brumbies, it's all in front of them. It is all in front of them. This is a massive challenge for them. But I believe the Australian teams are better this year. Did a podcast with Andrew Mertens last week, had a chat to him. He's loving the way Australian rugby's going well. I think they're paying his wages, clearly. But, bottom line, I think they're going well.
Why? What's making them better?
Ask Mills.
I think they're bringing a different style. And when we look at sort of the set-piece stuff that we've been really trying to introduce and dominate there, I think they've actually started to find that sort of style that's similar to what the Drua and also Moana Pacifica are playing. They're a little bit expansive. The key would be is, can they get set-piece ball or can they get front foot ball and dominate that physicality? But I think in terms of the style they're trying to play, they might actually pip some teams early on, considering that Super Round is in their own backyard nice and early.
JK, I think...
I'm just putting my hand up because I feel like I'm at school.
Well, I do run a tight ship. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Crusaders school at that.
What a good one. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
My biggest issue with the Australian competition, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, will be the breakdown and the aggressiveness that the New Zealanders bring to the breakdown. And I think I like their style as well, Mills. I think it's a little bit depowered, that's no disrespect to the Australian sides. But I just don't know about the breakdown. So there's two things. I think next week's really important for the Blues. You know, if they get down there and win, it's amazing. If they get down there and get really close and could have won it. But then I'm really interested to see the Australian sides and the ruck and the power that we've got.
Well, that game in Christchurch could actually decide where the final played. If you look down the track, if you're anticipating what could happen and getting that opportunity. So both of those teams will understand it. But I think the Blues going down there right now, I don't think they've been in a better place in terms of knowing they can perform. You talk about the Australian teams, though. I think all of a sudden, like the of Waratahs, they are 12 months further on from where they were last year, and they were disastrous last year. But the talent is starting to deliver. And some of their stars are coming back to the fold. So I look across the board and I think it's a lot more competitive than it was last year, but whether or not they can get some momentum, and one of those Australian teams needs to find a way to control their own destiny by being at home. Yeah,
and I think looking from an Australian point of view, some of those teams, I mean, we look at the New Zealand side, you know, the way we play hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. The gap's getting a little bit closer. And when you know, I suppose compare it to what happened last year in the Championship, with the way the Australians came back with the All Blacks, it's kind of got that similar feel. So, whereas the New Zealand teams here are going, well, what does Australian bring? So, the Super Round and going in the crossover games, man, they're going to be big, especially those first couple of rounds.
Very big game next weekend, and we'll be talking about it just briefly there, the Crusaders taking on the Blues. It's time for JK's favourite moment of the show, I understand. Oh, he's got a bit sad now, his face, his bottom lip's dropped. It is trivia question time. You've got a few minutes, lads, to think this one through, and when we come back, we'll do the answer. But are you ready for this?
Born ready.
If it's about the Blues, he can't wait.
I'm glad you two have made up now. You knew that was going to happen, eh? You put him at 1 because you guys were going to have a good
Was that specially for him?
Funnily enough, I had them at 3 on Friday. Now they're at 1. God, that hurt.
It was hard to listen to as well. OK, so the question time. Here we go. All right, are you ready?
Yeah,
Mills, I know
ready.
you like to take notes. Don't look at
Let's
mine.
go.
Don't look at mine. OK, the question is, when was the last time the Blues beat the Crusaders in Christchurch? Your stunned silence is very, very reassuring. They're going to have a think about that when we come back. The answer, plus we're going to have a look at a few players
Did you pick
who
that?
we think are going to... Did I pick that? No, I do what I'm told. We are going to have a look at some players who are going to have a huge influence in the second part of this competition. We'll see you soon.
It wouldn't be anyone beating the Crusaders.
Spencer running across.
Did you beat them?
Pops it into a hole for Rapeni. Thaldau. Oh, he's away. Rapeni going to have Kunway on off. Straight past him. Straight past Alan Major. And it's McDonald into the line, slipping the first tackle back to McClaw. Richie McClaw. Now, Kano breaking, running strongly. Jerome Kano gets it away to Wolf.
to Tui Tabaki. So good on his feet. Tui Tabaki through the pass to Flemmer. And the one goes to Tui. And here's an opportunity. Getting it wide. Now a sprint for the corner. And there's no way they're going to stop. Now Mo'unga jabbing a little kick through. And it's fallen beautifully. And now here goes Brent Hall. And he's got the pace.
Pops it to Francis. Tuanafasi is there. Now Pulu probing. Pulu breaking. Pulu gets a lovely ball away. Duffy. Moana scores the first try of the night. And it's a beauty for the Blues.
Jordan. Will Jordan. Almost through.
Oh!
He is through. Will Jordan.
Kia ora, welcome back to The Breakdown. We're on to the trivia question part of the show. And look, I've got three very stumped young gentlemen here with me. The question was, when was the last time the Blues beat the Crusaders in Christchurch? Simple. Jeff Wilson doesn't care,
I don't
apparently.
care. I honestly don't care. I've got no interest in this whatsoever.
Well,
JK
you
should know
better
this,
buck
though.
up your ideas, buddy, because that's the question, and you're going to need to know it this weekend as well.
That's what you answer when you don't know.
Yeah. No,
So,
you did a good job. You must have been... Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you
All
like
right.
the answer? Saturday the 13th, game started.
You used your phone.
The game started at 2:30 p.m.
Hold on.
at
Let's
Lancaster
have a look.
Park.
Oh,
1756.
look at that. It's on there.
Did you... Was that it?
1756.
Did you give us what?
Was that long
No,
ago?
that was the year.
1750? I thought you were talking like very... God, that's very time specific. isn't
I
it?
don't know. I don't know.
Okay, Mills, what do you got?
2004.
Should we have a look? Let's have a little look.
Oh,
There she
stop it.
blows. There she blows. 27th of February,
Is that the Lossy one?
2004.
Boom, mate.
Was that Lossy in the corner?
6,617 days ago.
Wow.
Oh, was it?
It was
Feels
all
like
in black
yesterday.
and white back then, was it?
Feels like yesterday.
Was that the infamous one we ran to the corner?
No, Penny carved up. That is that one, yeah.
That is the one he goes to the corner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually said that to you. And
I
you said,
thought it was
oh,
kinda
no,
like-
it won't be that far back. And you put me off.
I thought that was 2005, though.
Is that Joe Rockefeller?
Yeah, that's just...
In 22.
Hey, come on, guys. Come see me when we want some answers, man.
I gave you that
appreciate
answer,
you.
and then...
What?
You know I gave you. I said it was that Carlos game.
cannot
I said it was that Carlos game.
claim, Laura.
And then you,
Look, I personally didn't
played
hear it.
deception, and then he said, no, it wasn't that game. No, the one since then.
I was way too
Take
busy
control,
then.
Rob.
I was
Some-
way too busy
Can't
seeing
be
that
Throw
was
some sash
6,000
there.
days.
Tell these
since.
guys off. Tell these guys off.
Take them off?
Tell them off.
Tell them off or give them a recap. Get you out of here. Get you out of here. Now, if you guys do have a question for the team, you can check out our Instagram page, check all the details there and send one through. Now, this round has seen a lot of injuries, and the big one, of course, is Anton Leonard-Brown. He did not look good off the back of that, and he's going to see a specialist. That is the line. He's seeing a specialist later this week, so we will know more. But, Mills, your thoughts on that? It's pretty huge in the grand scheme of not just the Super Rugby, but the bigger picture for New Zealand rugby, because he looked in all sorts of pain. And Sam Cane even said post-match he didn't like the look of it.
Yeah, massive as well. I mean, he's a leader within the Chiefs, and when you look at sort of that, he's just going into the ball. I hope it's not instability in terms of the shoulder. He's really sort of hurt. But the bigger picture as well, with the All Blacks and whatnot, he will be a massive loss, and he'll be hurting because he's only just come back from injury as well.
We love a debate. We talk about positions in the All Blacks all the time. Anyone I spoke to, when you talk about the midfield, he's the first guy you write down, and that's who you're going to play with him, JK. I mean, that's the reality, the impact he's had. And he was just starting to show those signs. Yeah. Last year he had that wee knee niggle. He didn't quite have that explosiveness. He was just starting to show those signs. So I can only hope that the news is in some way positive, but it didn't look good. And you know, all of a sudden, if you start talking significant shoulder injuries, those are a long process. So we've just got to hope, JK.
Yeah, and I feel really sorry for Anton. I think he's an amazing young man. You know, often talks about his mental health, so he's leading in that space. And yeah, if it's the same shoulder, Mills, you know, that sort of doubles the problem. I think the saddest thing that I think about is combinations. You know, he was a bit of a rock there when he was well. He hasn't been well for a couple of years, which has been tough. but it really puts pressure on our combinations. You know, when you start thinking about winning World Cups, you know, you go Nonu, Conrad Smith, you know, the great era from Australia with Horan and Little, you know, our locks have a pairing. I think there's positions where you've just got to know each other defensively, Mills. You know, you've got to know that your mate's on your inside, but also just that little subtle stuff. You know, you go through a hole, you might throw a blind pass, but it's not actually blind because you know you're there. So what is our midfield? We haven't had any consistency with Goodhue being out, Anton Leonard-Brown being out. You know, I'd say that Fozzie would be, you know, having a quiet grappa before he goes to sleep, just to get to sleep.
There's a guy about 6'4" who's been playing the Hurricanes the last couple of weekends. All of a sudden, has that become more of an option? As much as you're talking about this one, I was really sad to see Shannon Frizzell go down in the first couple of minutes of the Highlanders game as well, because the blindside flanker position was one we've talked about. Tupou Vaa'i had been put into that role for the Chiefs. He's not out there at the moment either. Akira Ioane is not out there either. There's obviously clearly a number of Crusaders loose forwards that would like that responsibility, but just Shannon had been playing so well, Mills. His carrying, his defensive work. He's got a scan tomorrow, I understand. I text Brownie to find out the extent of it. But if it's an MCL, it might not be. That can be a sort of 6 to 7 weeks, and that's maybe not so bad. They lost Manaki Sawi Rickett as well, a similar injury. So, but yeah, losing Shannon, I think, huge for them, but also for that depth at the 6th position.
Oh, I think in terms of the way he's been playing, he's in a struggling team. He was getting go-forward ball. He just stepped up another level from where he sort of come from, and then to have this little setback. I hope the same. I hope it's only sort of something, you know, minor, and that it's not too long. But certainly, with the way he's been playing, he's been huge.
We've talked about big players and their impact on their teams, on their games, on the competition. And, Jeff, there was a couple that you picked out that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I'm talking up the Blues again.
Can you stop, please?
No, I'm
Let's
talking
get a little
them up
balance here. What's going on?
Because you have to do a lot of things, and you have to put together an environment. They've started to do that. They've done that with Liam McDonald. But then you've got to create depth, and you want to bring in experience. Now, for the last 3 seasons, we haven't seen at Super Rugby level Luke Romano play anything like what we're seeing him play right now for the Blues. He's a reinvigorated player, was outstanding for Canterbury last year in the NPC, in the Bunnings NPC. He's come to Auckland. He's loving being here. He's seeing different things in a different environment. I'm gutted he hasn't done this sooner, JK. The fact that he could have been somewhere else for 3. He played 2 appearances last year for the Crusaders off the bench. He's come to Auckland and has clearly made a difference with this Blues team in terms of experience and developing players. This is one of the reasons when you see the depth that the Blues have created. There's another player I want to talk about in a moment, but for me, Romano, regardless of the odd card he gives away, but he's brought something they didn't have.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you saying it must have been the hardest decision for him ever to leave. And when you talk about cultures, I think the Crusaders have probably led the way in the last 15 years.
Players want to play.
Yeah,
players want to play, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but I think, you know, he is in the twilight of his career, so it would have been a really hard decision. But the rest of it, I agree with.
Why is he in the twilight of his career? Why are we putting a number?
He's 400, isn't he? How old is he?
Well, I tell you what, no one wants to run into a Mills. I can tell you that for a fact, and you know you've been run into when he's got the ball.
He's well refreshed as well. A different environment, perhaps really hesitant to come up to Auckland initially, but now he's probably, I mean, the leadership sort of aspect that he's been given, he's really thrived in that, and so. He's brought that steel amongst within the Blues, and when you thought about it, when I looked at it and the team they put out, you know, himself and also who was the other lock, Goodhue, you know, a lot of height sort of missing there without Derry there, but they obviously wanted to bring that physical aspect. And what did he do? He went out there and absolutely dominated. So refreshed, but also he's been given a responsibility. When guys like that get responsibilities, they love their environment. So it's fantastic to see him play so well.
The other guy I want to talk about is Bryce Heem. So when he came back into the environment, I think last year with the Blues, where was Bryce Heem been? And obviously been overseas, he'd played for the New Zealand 7 sides. This guy here, his versatility, playing both second 5 centre and on the wing for them. When they lost Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, there was a question mark about, OK, how are they going to reshuffle their backline? All of a sudden, this guy here, I think he's been outstanding once again. A player with experience, balance, confident under pressure, doing the simple things well, not making errors, you know, and that's why when you reintroduce Roger Tuivasa-Sheck back into the team, what does that do to the whole backline? I mean, when you start, what do I do with Rico now?
Well, you picked 2 key aspects of the Blues game. 2 guys that know their job. You know, they don't bring any fancy stuff. They just know their job and do their job at 100%, but do it really well. Really physical in terms of Romano. When you look outside with him, he just does the basics and does them really well. That's the stability they've needed for a very long time, JK. So when you bring a Roger back in there, you slot him in there, then you bring a little bit of X factor. So they're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, they lost Plummer as well, which probably, you know, they'll probably go to training and go, wow, you know. Bryce, what do you reckon, mate? You know, he was fantastic, I think, since he's been here. Last year, I thought he was really good. Played a lot of games on the wing. And when they put him there, I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. But he probably wobbled a wee bit at North Harbour a couple of times on defence, but he's fixed that up really quickly and he's really solid now, getting the ball over the advantage line. So good. So, yeah, I don't disagree. I think, you know, some of those older heads can really help a younger side, because what I said yesterday is this is a young Blues side and they need that experience just to calm them.
And that winning experience from Romano as well, which has also been very helpful.
Where did you get that?
I got that from the Crusaders,
Oh, what a
funny enough.
surprise.
I tell you what, if you want to go down that road, I am more than happy to do it, but we are running out of time, which is very upsetting. Another of our Jersey tales this week. Jim caught up with double World Cup winner and one of rugby's absolute characters. She is sensational, Melodie Robinson.
Kia ora, guys. Well, I never was a very good person in terms of taking care of my rugby gear, but I have managed to keep a couple, and I've actually got them stored away in my dirty old smelly musty cupboard, which means they've probably got mould on them, but let's find out. It's under my wedding dress. The wedding dress, as you can see, is not been washed since I wore it around about 12 years ago. It's got a few alcohol stains on the bottom there. And here it is. We were sponsored by Canterbury when I started out playing for New Zealand in '96 through to '98, and so this is one of their jerseys, and it's huge and so heavy. So, like, you know, it would be raining, all kinds of stuff, and it was just terrible to wear, really, when you think about it and how much the jerseys change in advance. But yeah, so that's one of my favourites. I've got lots of good memories out of Canterbury clothes. My dad stole all of my jerseys, so he came with my power to my debut game in Australia, and he came straight into my room the next morning and just cleared out my stuff, because we were then going to Canada afterwards, so he's got that one, yeah. This is the 2002 World Cup jersey. This is the one I actually wore in the final. This is special to me because I was the incumbent for, I don't know, seven years or whatever it was of my career, and this was the first year that I wasn't, because Daryl wanted a massive number 6 as opposed to me. I was probably quite a light, fast number 6, and so he chose Cheryl Walker. And that World Cup was quite tough, because when you go from an incumbent through to, you know, being on the bench, you have to really change your support of the team and make sure your mindset's different. So quite a hard World Cup for me, but in the year, at the end, it was awesome as well. And I still got in the field. Apparently Daryl said that I gave way too many bloody penalties, which was completely right, because I was an aggressive player. To have the winning 2002 team on one of my jerseys was really, really special. And it brings back some of the memories of some of these amazing athletes. So Vanessa Coots, she's 100% probably the best winger I've ever played with. And, you know, she used to score tries like you wouldn't believe.
Because you had to break through as a commentator just as much as you did as a rugby player, didn't you? How tough was that early on?
Horrendously tough, because I guess when you are selected, you're sort of forced onto the other commentators. And way back then, that was pretty controversial, I think about 2001. No other female had been on the sideline of a rugby game, and you don't get trained. And my last jersey out of this lot, because I do have one more, is not a rugby playing jersey, but this is a jersey that Willie Losay and the boys made for us after many years on the 7 circuit. They got these little jerseys made. Of course, I'd slimmed down by that stage. I didn't have quite as many muscles, so I actually fit into this jersey. And that just holds heaps of really good memories from being on that 7s circuit with some pretty cool people from all around the world.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Now, of course, the Black Ferns internal review is out tomorrow. We already know that Wayne Smith and Graham Henry are joining the coaching staff, but JK, or Don Giovanni, I'm going to hand it over to you now, because you may have some extra news for us.
Yeah, and I've got some extras because Goldie did his section, so Don Giovanni's section.
Don't like that.
Please don't like that.
We've got not in studio. Not in studio.
Could not like it. Sorry. Yeah, so we brought you Wayne Smith. We, Voce di Corridoi, as you say, whispers in the corridor. We predicted the donut on the weekend. But the latest Voce di Corridoi, so don't tell anybody. John Haggett, the assistant coach of the Black Ferns, has decided to move on to another role. It had nothing to do with the review, so it was just about him moving on. So don't say anything to anyone until Tuesday when they make the official announcement. Grazie.
Grazie. That was magnificent. That was truly...
It was concerning, is what that was. Disturbing.
Jeff, look, Jeff, your face through that was fantastic, actually. I really enjoyed that. Mike Cron has been in with the Black Ferns, but he's now been brought back into the All Blacks. So let us take a look now at the All Blacks coaching unit. Jeff, what is going on here? You got coaches for coaches now.
Well, look, yeah, the interesting thing is both teams did a review at the end of last season. So you think about the All Blacks coaching team. Look, Ian Foster, John Plumtree, Greg Feek, Brad Moore, they've all been there, Scott McLeod. Joe Schmidt is clearly being brought into the environment to add some leadership and support around the selectors. So they've done a review, and clearly, on the back of the information from the players and their performance, they've looked at a couple of areas that they feel as though they need help. And that's in the forward pack, as scrums on. And Mike Cron is one of the best in the world. He's done the job before. I'm interested to see how much hands-on work these guys are going to do. And Andrew Strawbridge, a skill set in terms of their execution is another area they've highly identified. So, bottom line, it's a big team to manage, though, JK. And in terms of, as you know, the amount of time there is on a training pitch to prepare the players, what does it suggest to you that all of a sudden there's that many voices, or is this pure and simply about gathering more information and getting, I suppose, different feedback about how they can get better?
Well, I could probably give you another Voce di Corridoi. They'll need 2 buses. One for the coaching staff and one for the team. Yeah, no, I think seriously for me, what has come out of the review, and has this been done because of something that came out of the review? And if that's the case, I don't mind. Yeah. I think, you know, we've got 18 tests, I keep saying.
Well, you're not singing
18
yet.
tests. And I just think it's really, really important that Fozzie goes, OK, these were the weaknesses last year, Mills, and this is what we're going to do to fill it. I do think the concern is too many voices, but that's something I'm hoping that they'll be aware of. You know, I think... I don't really believe coming in to help, your All Black coaches should be the best in the world. So maybe it's filling a couple of gaps.
Well, Mike Cron's proved he's the best in the world, though, Mills. He's done that before. Look, he's got a role with World Rugby as well. I just think a lot of this is about, you know, them trying to get just that little bit of extra support. And sometimes you need a different voice to challenge you. Well,
that's my concern. I'm similar to you, JK, the fact that we've got so many voices on there. Are we that sort of behind the rest of the world, the fact that we need guys to come in? I know there was a review based on that, but what do you prioritise, you know, leading into these 18 sort of test matches that they're on? So when you look at France and, you know, obviously they're leading the way, but what do we need to get to that level? I know that these guys have come in because we've lacked a little bit of skill, apparently, because, you know, of the COVID aspect as well. But what are the others? What are the rest of the world sort of done? So are we that far behind? And some of this sort of seems to me, I hope they're not panicking too much and they really prioritise the needs of getting us, back up there.
It looks complicated.
It does look complicated. But it's necessary, and this is the All Blacks we're talking about here. So clearly they've gone to the high-performance team at New Zealand Rugby. They've gone to the board and said, this is what we need to perform. And everyone signed off on it. So everyone at New Zealand Rugby has to be in on this together.
I hope they ask Wayne Smith.
Everyone asks Wayne Smith.
I'd ask why I call him all the time, but that's not about rugby. Yeah. Let's have a look at the games that are coming up over the next week. We've got Moana Pacifica taking on the Canes. That's Tuesday night at Sky Stadium. What do you imagine Mills will see there?
Well, I think the Canes will come back. I think they'll be hungry in terms of what sort of happened. Moana's been really physical. You know, this is a big turnaround considering they played Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday again. That's a massive shift, Goldie.
Who plays, JK? Who do you play if you're the Hurricanes? You need to win this game. They lost to the Moana Pacifica team, and Moana will look at this as an opportunity.
I'm really worried about Adi Savia. You know, he puts so much into every football game that I wouldn't be playing him on Tuesday night. I would be hoping that the Hurricanes would do something like the Crusaders did, because I think, like you said, no disrespect to Moana Pacifica, but they, you know, that's hard. That's a hard couple of weeks, and they should be pretty pretty fatigued. So it's a real difficult one, real difficult selection.
Big matchup, of course, on Friday. The Crusaders taking on the Blues. One we'll all be watching with interest there. And Jeff, I mean, physicality-wise, she's a big one.
Sell out in KFC, I think. That'll be what's happening at in Christchurch. That's for me. I look at this. These are the two top teams in terms of performance, the New Zealand sides. I think if you want to go to a game in Christchurch, go and watch this game. This could be a touch of what you're going to get later on in the season.
Absolutely. Saturday, Chiefs, Moana Pacifica. JK, you happy with that? What do you imagine is going to happen there? Good one for the Chiefs to bounce back with?
Oh, they don't have a choice. You know, you're coming off a poor Moana Pacifica that's playing 4 games in 2 weeks. You don't beat them, you're in trouble.
Highlanders, Canes closing out next weekend, Mills.
Oh, do they go another one there, Goldie? You reckon they will, wouldn't they?
Oh, man, I think they're going to win every week. And how's that worked out for me so far? But come on, Brownie, we're all over it. We're all over it. Second win of the year.
All right, good luck for that one. Right, it's a great week of rugby we've just had. Great weekend coming up. Thank you guys so much for having me. You've been brilliant as always. We will see you next weekend, and I'll be bringing Easter eggs because I'm just that kind of gal. We'll see you then.
Now Hunt's got away beautifully and sent it wide, and the opening try scored. Slips the pass, and away it goes, and Kiripi scores. Should open up here, and it does. And a try scored by Quinton Strange is for Morby. And Morby scores in the corner. And here's Bill Jordan. He left too much pace.
Well, what a great sight it is as we look down on the stadium. Rico Ioane puts the foot down. Ioane, just taken. Now the kick out to the wing. Robinson is there.